Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Gautam's Cooking Adventures. In this episode, we are going to make a Patali Gur based rice kheer, otherwise called Chaler Payesh in Bengali, and this will incorporate Patali Gud, which is a date palm jaggery, and it imparts a very special flavor and taste to it. As always, you will find a copy of the ingredients list in the description below this video. To make the payesh, we are going to start with 4 cups of milk, some ghee, some Patali Gud, which is date palm jaggery, some green cardamom, and I'm going to take a little bit of sugar along with it because we're going to powder it in a mortar and pestle, and that way the sugar helps to keep it powdery and dry, so it's easier to make it. We're going to take some saffron, but we're going to immerse this in some warm milk, and basically allows the saffron to let out its fragrance, and that way it makes the kheer or the payesh much better. Some raisins, some small grain rice, which is ideal for this situation. What we will do is we will immerse it in water and allow it to absorb water and swell before we start the cooking. And we're going to require 12 almonds. We've pre-soaked some of the almonds in water already, and the idea is to make the almonds soft and easy to cook. Now we'll go through the process of cooking them. Now saffron also gives a natural orange color, and rather than using a chemical orange coloring, the saffron will give it that color that we need along with the flavor. We've transferred the jaggery into a pot, and we're going to add little water into this, and what we're going to do is heat it to melt it. We're going to start the flame, and we're going to set it at a little above medium. We don't want it too hot, but we want it hot enough to start the melting process. The whole point is that we want to separate any impurities that the jaggery has. As you know, jaggery, in this case Patali Gud, actually comes in a large block. It's a raw form of jaggery and could have impurities in them which need to be filtered out. Ensure to keep mixing the solution well, because jaggery, being a form of sugar, can quite easily burn at the bottom, so you want it to constantly be moved around while it's melting. The heat itself will melt the jaggery, and the water is just basically to help it become more liquid, because during the filtering process more liquid form is easier to filter than a thicker form of jaggery. The gourd or the jaggery has nicely melted. It's now time to switch the stove off, and now it's going to go through the filtration process to ensure that we remove any of the impurities that may be trapped within it. So that's the liquid we're going to use for actual cooking of our payesh or the kheer or this dessert that we're going to make today. Patali Gur is quite used a lot in Bengali sweet dishes, in sandesh, which is a form of sweet dish, in various other forms as well. So it's something you might see whenever you look at Bengali sweetmeats that Patali Gur is mentioned quite often. Now that we filtered out the good, you'll notice that there's impurities, small bits of matting, some small bits of maybe twigs, all of them, which is what we wanted to remove from the mix before we started cooking. Also in the dish itself, you might find small bits of other things that are impurities that were in it as well. We're taking a large double bottom dish for cooking this. We're going to start by putting the flame on medium high, adding the milk into it. The milk is going to be heated till it starts to form small bubbles or just at the beginning of a boil, but it needs to be constantly stirred to ensure that it does not catch or burn at the bottom. It's a little tedious process, but it's well worth the effort. Now we are using full fat milk in this case. If you've got thinner versions of milk, you might want to thicken it first before you go on to making the kheer. A thicker milk is always a preference. Now just a reminder that there was 4 cups of milk that we added into this pan. Remember that mixing the milk is key to ensure that it does not burn at the bottom. Now the almonds have been soaked for a bit, so what it does is it makes it easy for us to skin them. We don't want the skin in the cooking, so all we do is just push down firmly and they easily slide out of the skin. The almonds will then be made into thin slices before we add them into the mix to cook. The rice had been soaked for about half an hour to 45 minutes and it's now been strained, so all the water has been removed. Meanwhile, Sandhya is cutting the almonds into thin slivers, get them ready for the cooking. And here they are. It might seem like a lot of milk for the amount of rice that is put in, but rice will swell and it will almost double, if not more, in quantity in terms of volume. So it will be enough for the amount of milk we've had here. Also remember that as we cook, the milk will also start to thicken. It will lose some of its water content, and so the volume of milk will also reduce. Traditionally, Gobindobhog rice variety is used in cooking the kheer or the payesh. You do not use anything like a biryani rice, a long grain biryani rice like the basmati, because you don't want to lose the flavors of the Patali Gud and the rest of the ingredients that go in here, which will get overwhelmed by the flavor of the basmati rice itself. So you want the flavors of the spices to come out, and that's why you use this specific rice. We do not have the the specific rice that we need here, but instead we're using a sambar rice, which is very similar in its characteristics. It's a small grain rice, doesn't impart any kind of flavor of its own, so that's perfect for this case. We're going to continue to keep mixing and allowing the milk to come to a boil. But once it starts boiling, we will lower the flame to medium flame to allow it to cook at a slower pace. You can see that the milk is starting to thicken as well while the rice is cooking. It's getting more frothy, more creamier. Now when we reach the boiling point, milk has started to boil. You can see that the rice is starting to be pushed out. This is when we'll lower the flame to a medium. And cover the mixture now to allow it to cook. Rice can cook at different speeds depending on the kind of rice you use. So what we're going to do is allow it to cook for about 5 minutes and then check again to see how well it's cooked and whether it needs additional cooking, and make a final call at that point of time. As you can see, it's boiling, the rice is starting to come up. We want to do a counter check again to make sure that it's not overcooking the rice. The rice is still not fully cooked. We will consistently keep doing this from time to time. We want to ensure that the rice does not overcook, but at the same time it needs to be not undercooked as well. Each time we check, we're also going to give it a quick curl, make sure that it's mixed well so the rice doesn't catch in the bottom. And we're also checking to see that the rice doesn't get too mushy, which is a sign of overcooking. We'll cover it again. We'll make another check again another minute or two from now, and we'll continue this process till the rice is ready. Now the quick check, as you can see, is the volume of rice has increased because the rice is cooked. It's just right. It's not extra mushy, but it's just easy enough to pinch through and check that it's cooked. The rice has reached that point where we're going to start adding some of the other ingredients into it, starting with the jaggery. The jaggery gives it the sweetness, the color, and the specific taste that only Patali Gur can bring to it. What we're doing now is just crushing the saffron in the milk. And we're going to add it into the mixture now. Notice how yellow that milk had become because of the saffron. So saffron adds its own unique flavor to the mix. The ghee, half of the ghee that we have taken. Ghee adds an additional component of flavor that no other oil can bring to it. Ghee is otherwise known as clarified butter. Has its own aroma and flavoring to it. And just half a pinch of salt. And the salt just helps to bring the sweetness out even better. Give it a nice swirl. Remember that the rice was not fully cooked yet. It had reached that point of almost cooked when we started adding the rest of the stuff into it. And even through this process, the rice is still cooking. I would say the rice was 80 to 85% done when we started adding the ingredients to it. In the meantime, we've also started to prepare some of the other ingredients. So the rest of the ghee that we had kept aside has been put into a small container. We're going to heat this up. It's cooking on a high heat. Basically, at this point in time, we're going to be preparing the raisins and the almond to be added into the mixture. And before we do that, we want them to be fried a bit. In goes the almonds. Mix it, let it fry a little bit. Remember that ghee takes a little while to heat up, but also the almond was soaking in water earlier, so it could have some amounts of water in it. So when it starts to heat up, it could splutter, so watch out for that. It's been cooking for almost a minute now in the hot heat. And we've added the raisin in. The raisin, when it gets hot, will start to swell. Just be careful because sometimes it can swell and burst, so you don't want it to wait till it's ready to burst. You notice that the raisin has started to swell. It's become round now. It's no longer the dried form that it had before. We're now going to switch the stove off. This is ready now. It's just right for adding to the mix. And we're now adding it into the rice mix. We're also adding the ground cardamom into this. And then ensuring that we stir everything together. At this time you will definitely be getting all the aromas and the flavors being released by the payesh, the kheer. And all we're doing right now is cooking it till the rice has reached that level of cooking that we want it to be at. We'll do a quick check here now for the taste. We think we need a little more of the jaggery just to add the little additional sweetness. It was already sweet, but a little additional sweetness would be nice. Now Bengalis like their sweet. So we've added the remnant of the Gud into this. The rice is almost cooked, just a little grainy. We're just going to wait for a little longer for it to cook, just a little more. See how thick the mixture has become now. The volume of rice has risen to a point where it's now a nice thick mix. A minute or so and the rice will be fully cooked and will be ready. Now what we did at the beginning was we actually made a little extra jaggery in our solution, just in case we wanted it sweeter at the end. And so in our case, because we do want it a little sweeter, we've added some additional jaggery to it. Now you have a choice either to keep the payesh in the format it is now, which is a thick format, or you can always add a little bit of milk to it to thin it down. It's your choice how you'd like it to be served. If you are going to add milk, just make sure that you don't add poured milk into this mixture. It will curdle if you do so. So first heat the milk. In our case, we can just put it into a microwave and heat it. So we can then add hot milk into this mixture. Now we've heated the milk. We want this to be a little more of a liquid solution or liquid mix. So we added another cup of milk just to make it a little more liquid, and give it a nice twirl. Mix it in, blend it together. Again, like I said, this is entirely optional depending on how thick or thin you like your kheer to be, the payesh as it's called. And optionally, you can also finish this off. At this point in time, the kheer is ready or the payesh is ready. At this time, you can finish this off if you want, optionally, by garnishing it with some fried slivers of almond, just to put on top, make it look nice and pretty. So now that the mixture has come to a boil, what we're going to do now is switch the stove off, put the lid on, and let it rest for about 10 minutes, during which time it will thicken a little bit. The rice will also finish its final cooking, and the kheer will be ready. We put the payesh into a serving dish, and we have now garnished it with some fried almonds, some fried raisins, and just a couple of strands of saffron stalks. Now, people may also like to use cashew nuts. We have not used cashew nuts today, but it's entirely optional. You can add cashew nuts as well. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. Look forward to any suggestions or comments from you, and please do keep supporting us. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, click the like button, and do press the bell icon so that you can be notified of all our future episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.